We are transmitting live from San Diego, California, from the studios of KPBS on the campus of San Diego State University. Greetings to our distinguished participants in Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, and the United States of America. Once again, we would like to thank Telecomunicaciones de México, PanamSat, BrazilSat, and NawalSat for their satellite linkage services, which allow us to reach all of you directly through the wonders of telecommunications. Welcome to the program, The Learning Organization, Vision and Management Opportunities, the 10th video conference of our 1996 series, entitled Strategies for Global Competitiveness. My name is Armando Osorio, and I will be your moderator for this video conference. We would like to remind the coordinators at each receive site to collect the attendance sheets for your site and mail them to the ITC along with a list of participants interested in obtaining the certificate or diploma for this series of programs. This program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. Today's program is important given that today's world-class organizations must continually adapt to the constantly changing global realities, learning from them, discovering markets, and creating an intelligence base. This video conference will discuss how the learning organization can accomplish these tasks, the management challenges and opportunities involved, and the specific guidelines involved in creating business intelligence. Today's speaker will discuss successful strategies for maximizing the potential of your human resources, including empowerment, accountability, and adaptability. These concepts are essential for any competitive organization today, particularly when it is involved in the implementation of a vision or development goal that incorporates technology and multicultural flexibility. It is a pleasure to introduce to you today's expert speaker, Mr. Thomas Hoffmann. Mr. Hoffmann is a principal in the consulting firm Human Factors Incorporated, located in San Rafael, California. He works primarily with Fortune 500 companies leadership teams in understanding those organizational characteristics which will lead to higher employee contribution, performance, and satisfaction. Originally from Wisconsin, Mr. Hoffmann began his career at AT&T in 1970. From 1989 to 1991, Mr. Hoffmann was Administrative Director of Quality for AT&T's Western region. He was also in charge of the introduction and support of the concept of total quality in the sales division. He was selected as Senior Evaluator for the Malcolm Baldrige Award for the period 1990-1993. He has also been a guest professor at Estonia Business School in Tallinn, Estonia. He has also published a number of works on strategic vision and the management of human resources. Welcome, Mr. Hoffmann. Let us begin with an introductory question. You have explained to us in past programs the difference between strategic vision and strategic planning. Does the learning organization that you now describe subscribe to these 2 concepts? If so, which of the 2 is most important?
Well, thank you, Armando. Yes, both of these concepts are supported by the learning organization. In fact, both are fundamental to a learning organization to be created and to flourish. And so without a vision or strategic vision of where the organization wants to go, sort of the guiding light or that post, the organization doesn't know how to rally its resources and align its mechanisms. And so as it designs its strategy to achieve that vision, it needs to be able to gather the intelligence that it has gained in the marketplace and around the world to bring to bear for those strategies to be effective. But it also needs to understand how it learns, and that's very important. So I would say that all 3 are necessary from a holistic view as opposed to either one of them being more important.
Gracias, señor Hoffmann.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. We shall now start with the first module in which Mr. Hoffman will explain to us today's organizational reality as it relates to organizational culture and organizational awareness.
I'd like to begin with a story, a Sufi story. The Sufi stories are wisdom stories of the Middle East. There was a stranger walking down the street when he came upon another man under a street light, on his hands and knees, crawling in the gutter looking for something. He realized the man appeared drunk. He asked, "What are you looking for?" "I lost my key," replied the man. "May I help you find it?" asked the stranger. "Certainly," replied the man. So the stranger got down on his hands and knees and they began to search. They looked and looked and looked. Finally, the stranger asked, "Are you sure you lost your key here?" "No," responded the man. "I lost it over there." "But then why are we looking for it here?" asked the stranger. "Because there's a street light here and I can see. It's dark over there." Think of the number of times you've searched for an answer to something and only looked in those places which were familiar to you. Today we're going to spend some time looking at how organizations can become places where learning takes place, is nurtured and rewarded. But as we progress, you might begin to wonder how the information discussed relates to becoming a learning organization. A direct answer, a great deal. And I suggest that the discussion also impacts many other initiatives you may wish to undertake to be successful in business. I suggest the answer, a great deal, because as I experience in my work more and more organizations who are attempting to become more effective, achieving better results, and to become more satisfying places to work, I find them looking in familiar places for unfamiliar answers. It sounds a lot like the definition of insanity we hear frequently these days. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. Let's begin by framing the subject. You want to become a learning organization. Last year, we addressed what a learning organization is. We looked at the challenges Peter Senge gave us in the fifth discipline and the impact of mental models on our approach to issues. And you explored those concepts some more earlier this year. We also looked at the challenge that Nick Imperato gave us in jumping the curve by suggesting we are using the language and mental models of the industrial age to address creating businesses in the information age. Language and models which limit how we attempt to explain the impact of an age we cannot yet comprehend. And if a way to address this new age is to become a learning organization, I'd suggest further that your understanding of the current culture of your organization will determine your success. We could talk for the next hour about mechanisms, processes, or steps to becoming a learning organization, but they will fail unless we look elsewhere first, namely your organization's culture. Before continuing, there are a few assumptions which are fundamental to this discussion. First, as business leaders, you are looking for sustainable profitability. Pictorially, sustainable economic value is a combination of defensible competitive position, organizational capability, and a superior culture. Second, the recent research is valid that shows that the most expensive capital a business has is the intellectual capital in and of its people. And it would be your desire as business leaders to take full advantage of this economic value creation potential. The third assumption, the performance of a business system is a direct function of management's ability to optimize the use of human energy under complex changing conditions. Optimizing performance in a business system involves creating the conditions that produce optimal utilization of the reservoir of available human energy and talent. Adaptability, ability to learn to changing circumstances, is the key indicator of the strength and health of a system. Fourth, change is normal in all natural systems. It is totally predictable and a natural result of being alive. Stability is an illusion. Key characteristics of living systems are energy, the fundamental element of all living systems. They're purposeful and self-organizing, anticipatory, holistic, interconnected and interdependent, balanced dynamic management of energy through cooperation, harmony and synergy. And living systems are self-correcting. They depend on feedback and they're open to learning and growth. Our fifth assumption is leadership's challenge is to either embrace change or transformation when seeking a new level of performance or satisfaction. Change is a variation on the past within the same paradigm, so there's no real shift in pattern of behavior. Transformation is a state change in a way that the system thinks and acts a new paradigm, a fundamentally new way of being and operating. A key role of leadership is to understand what to keep, what's working and should be enhanced, what to delete, what's not working and must be changed or eliminated, and what to create, what needed that does not currently exist. Well, we suggested that if we are to become a learning organization, we should first start by looking at the culture. What is culture? Culture is the attitudes and behaviors that are prevalent in an organization that members believe are valued, rewarded, and reinforced. It includes the degree of alignment shared by the members around a common vision, values, and a sense of purpose. One might say that the culture of an organization is the organization's collective condition of mind. Additionally, one might say high performance is a function of a leader's or manager's ability to create and manage the collective condition of mind. To explore this concept, let's begin by exploring a simple model. We'd say that results are a direct outcome of the effectiveness of our decision-making. The effectiveness of our decision-making is directly dependent upon our ability to access accurate data. Accurate data is directly dependent upon our awareness. What we are aware of is directly linked to how we perceive. Our perception is driven by our values. And finally, how effectively we deal with these dimensions revolves around our attitude. The remainder of the program will seek linkages between our ability to understand organizational learning by looking at various pieces of the model and available research. I think we can readily agree on the first three items: results, effective decision-making, and accurate data. Namely, that our ability to make effective decisions directly affects outcomes, and that we need access to accurate data to help us make those decisions. These are areas familiar to us and are explored frequently, to use our metaphor, looking under the light. But let's take a closer look at awareness. Awareness is simply a term used to describe how we acquire data, what we pay attention to, what are our conclusions, or what are we conscious of, data that is used to make decisions. Essentially, we collect data through our senses. It is said that the volume of data acquired is approximately 100 million bits of data per second. However, for survival, we screen the incoming data to reduce potential overload. Kurt Lewin, a noted psychologist, speaks of the field of experience versus the field of awareness. The field of experience is the sum total of all the data being received through the five senses. Most of the data is unconscious. The portion of the data we are conscious of is our field of awareness, a very small portion of the total data available. One of the marvelous characteristics about being human is that we can move our field of awareness around our field of experience, almost like a beacon searching the sky for an airport. For example, You all entered a room where you are viewing this broadcast today. Let's say I ask you to close your eyes and answer a few questions. Without looking around or checking, how many of you know how many windows are in the room? How many and what type of light fixtures are on the ceilings? The walls? How many doors are in the room? What color is the carpet? What pattern is in the carpet? What color is the shirt or blouse which the person sitting next to you is wearing? I suspect that some of you knew many of the answers. Some of you knew very few of the answers. Why? Different things are important to each of you. However, I bet if you were an electrician, you would have known what and where the lights were. If you sold carpet, you probably would have noticed the color and pattern in the carpet right away. None of the physical environment changed, only your awareness of it after being asked. There are similar experiments you could try with regards to your feelings and thoughts. The results are similar. You can choose to move your awareness around your field of experience. So what's the connection to business and culture? Managing awareness opens up possibilities. We can't fix something we don't know about. Without awareness of the patterns of behavior in our business, we have no choice about them, and they, in effect, run the organization, literally and automatically. The challenge is becoming aware of the patterns at work, determining which of those really work to enhance the organization, and then consciously choosing actions that will get more of what you really want. To help understand, let's try an experiment. I want you to observe your behavior. What are you thinking? What emotions you're feeling? What physically happens to your body? Very closely watch your reaction to my request. The experiment is to answer two questions. I would like each of you to go to the front of the room, stand facing the group, and answer these two questions. My greatest weakness as a leader is. And the second question, my greatest professional failure in the last 3 years was. Ready? Who wants to go first? Okay, let's stop and review what happened. How many of you felt your hearts beat a little faster? How many of you felt your hands getting a little sweaty? How many of you felt your stomachs get the butterflies? Did anybody get a little dry mouth? Or how many of you started a mental list of all the possibilities and then started looking for the ones which wouldn't sound too bad? Or how many of you started to rehearse the answer, editing some of the facts? Well, maybe we really shouldn't have to say this, and well, they won't know if I skip that. Well, we call those stories. Did anyone just want to leave the room? What was happening? Why do we have these reactions? What are these reactions telling us? There are detailed psychological and physiological explanations, but simply, one of the basic mechanisms at work in our awareness screens out things that either threaten us or present no threat. If a threat is perceived, we revert to the basic fight or flight response. We experience fear. In this case, however, the threat or risk of having to answer the two questions was not one of life or death. However, it was clearly a threat which elicited a similar initial response to those of being attacked by a wild animal. A rapid heart, accelerated breathing, tensed muscles. If we explore the example further, we'd arrive at the conclusion that our response was one driven by fear. But fear of what? The fear of being judged by others. What will others think of me? Will they reject me if I tell them this story? How will they view me in the future? Will I lose credibility as a leader? Will I be an outcast? What is my risk in this situation? I want you to hold the thought about how powerful the fear of being judged by others can be. Just hold that mentally. Can you think of some other business examples which personally elicited a personal response which affected you either to choose to contribute or not contribute in a particular situation or project? What impact did it have on your contribution to the meeting, the project, the business moving forward? What was the perceived risk to you? So we respond to fear based on the level of risk perceived. As we think of this in relation to an organization, we would suggest that there are three zones where people function: the comfort zone, the high performance zone, and the danger zone. People who function in the comfort zone avoid taking risks which they consider unsafe. They perform tasks which they believe the organization will support. They won't rock the boat. They won't cause them undue stress or fear. Generally, the behaviors in an organization where people consistently perform in the comfort zone will be reflective of little innovation, creativity, learning, or challenge. Organizations which create support mechanisms which allow people to continually push the boundaries of risk create environments where people may experience fear, but not excessively. People are willing to challenge and know they are supported by the organization or leadership. These organizations learn from mistakes, encourage innovation, take on new challenges, they push the envelope, keep pushing. Organizations which encourage people to step out and take risks, but do not create the support mechanisms to reward those behaviors, are asking those people to function in unpredictable circumstances. For example, someone takes a risk perceived by someone else, like the boss, to be too great and fails, they're punished. The person stepped into the danger zone. What do you think people do when they step into the danger zone? Naturally, they quickly revert through the high performance zone to the comfort zone and will continue to operate there. Another opportunity loss of economic value creation. Well, let's return to the questions. So, if we accept the often stated premise that we learn from failures, I now have to ask, for those of you who felt significantly threatened by the two questions I asked you to stand in front of the group and answer, what would keep you from answering those questions back at the office? If you couldn't honestly answer those questions, do you think your organization honestly wants to become a learning organization? What patterns of behavior would have to be changed? What attitudes and behaviors that are prevalent in the organization, which members believe rewarded and reinforced, would have to be changed? Would you consider your organization functioning in the high performance zone? If we go back to our model, what happens to decisions when data gets filtered out due to fear of consequences in the organization? Decisions are then based on incomplete and inaccurate data. Fear itself is not a problem. Fear is a natural phenomena. The behaviors we have designed to cope with fears in the business setting adversely affects the performance and learning of the organization. Thinking of examples, recall the tragedy caused by the failure of the O-rings on the Space Shuttle Challenger. The organizational environment became too personally risky for the engineers to be able to state known problems. The organization did not receive accurate data to make accurate decisions. The culture of the organization directly affected results. Sidney Rubenstein, the director of NASA's Space and Shuttle Station project, says, "Removing fear from an organization is one of the single most powerful acts a leader can perform." The culture of your organization will determine to a large extent the quality of the data that is available to you to make effective decisions which directly affect your results. Let's take a look at the next element of our model, perception. How we perceive information directly drives our awareness. We'd say that perception significantly contributes to our ability to become a learning organization. Well, what is perception? How do you define it? Perception is the process by which the mind develops an image of reality from the data received through the five senses and uses that image as the basis for decision making. Additionally, the mind has the ability to create images separate from the incoming data and add it to our reality. We call that the process of imagination. Based on this data, we will define our reality, our interpretation of what we believe to be true. So why is this important? Let's take a closer look at three fundamental premises. First, each of us experiences an internal construction of reality. For example, I might look out and say I see a tree. Essentially, light waves are reflecting off an object. They enter my eye, are converted into nerve impulses which enter the brain. The impulses are unscrambled in the brain and a 3D holographic image is produced. I call it a tree. The experience of this image in our brain is what we call reality. So the reality I have in my head is constructed there by the brain. Second, our internal experience of reality is different than the objective external reality. For example, how many of you had the opportunity to view an accident where there were multiple witnesses? All of you saw the same accident. When people began to describe what they saw, did you suddenly think you might have been at a different accident? 5 people gave 5 different reports. Third, our internal perception of reality is carefully and unconsciously constructed and biased in favor of our preferred version of reality. What this is saying is that we add or delete data during the process of construction to fit our preferred view. Let's look at an example. An experiment was conducted in California a few years ago, and you might be thinking, this sounds like something they do in California, where they put eyeglasses on people which inverted the image entering the eye. So people saw the world upside down. What do you think happened several days later? You're right. The people began seeing things in their preferred way. The mind inverted the incoming images, and the people saw things right side up again. The people began seeing things in their preferred way. They constructed reality biased in favor of their preferred way of understanding. What do you think happened when the people took the glasses off? Right again. They saw things upside down. But this time the brain inverted the image in a matter of hours. There are a whole series of exercises one can do to demonstrate our ability to understanding of what is real, or what we call real. But for our purpose, there is a critically important message here. When we begin to see things in a preferred way, we begin filtering out the data which may not support our point of view or understanding. We approach things from the point of view of searching for evidence that will validate our position. Our mind will actively exclude possibilities that exist outside the framework of our position. In fact, as soon as we decide we have the answer or the right answer, our perceptual filters begin to filter out data which do not fit our point of view. Insert this concept into an organization with strong cultural norms which knows how things get done around here. What important information is completely ignored, filtered out, excluded from consideration? Then add the power of the fear of being judged and an environment where people are functioning in the comfort zone. What do you think will happen to a new idea like becoming a learning organization? Last year we discussed how people learned.